welcome back to another Medium Unlimited. We're going to be exploring Lightroom today, and most of all, we're going to explore new features that just recently launched in the Lightroom sections of all the apps: Lightroom Classic, Lightroom iPad, Lightroom all around. So it's been a little while since we've experienced a new feature in here. I think there's a lot of cool stuff here already to always explore, but in the realm of AI, I haven't heard too many things, except now we do. We do have something, a tool powered by generative AI, which is ultimately Firefly. So I'm excited to show you some of that if you haven't gotten an insight yet, if you haven't tuned in to a previous live stream of mine where I explored this already yesterday. So I'm gonna catch you up. We've got a couple tools to cover. I think today I want to dive in starting with my iPad. So I just got the iPad, the M4 iPad Pro, and I'm excited to explore some more streams on the iPad, especially because I love getting lost in the editing workflow with anything I have in whatever place I can. And the iPad is just the right thing for me. Anywhere at any time I can edit my photos. And so that's really the most important part, isn't it? To get lost in the workflow. So I invite you to open up your Adobe Lightroom, start diving in. This is the newest update, so make sure to update your recent Lightroom desktop, iPad, whichever one you have. It's out for general availability, so you should have access to it just as much as I do. Okay. So let's dive right in. All right. Okay, so this is my iPad screen, and I'm gonna show you a little bit more here. I am actually on my iPad right here. All right, so let's move over the mic. This is gonna be a short one today, but we're gonna dive into a bigger iPad workflow down the road, so stay tuned for that live stream. Now, where is my pen? Here you are. Okay, so I got this awesome pen, actually, and it's customized. I don't know if you can see it there. It's probably backwards, but it says Sin Lagos. Ah, it's so exciting. It's awesome. Okay, yes, I see a comment from Matthew. Hey, what's up, Matthew? Yes, thank you for the kind shoulder tap. I will talk to you about that. It's awesome. I'm happy to be in a position to help my fellow creators have more opportunities, and I'm working on that, folks. Always working on everything and anything. Okay, so as I'm here, I'm on Adobe Lightroom, the iPad version. Okay, so let's bring in a little bit more light in here so you can see it. All right, so in this version, I've got my photo open. This is a previous photo I took in Pride of last year here in Austin, Texas. And I'm excited to dive into these because they essentially are a series of photos that didn't have this technology available for me to make them better. So ultimately, these photos for me are, I often talk about having them be maybe like a C and trying to enhance them and make them better and better and better in post editing. Sometimes not everything works out the way we want to, especially in scenarios like this where we've got street photography, right? Like we've got a person over here because essentially it was a Pride Day, so I get it, people are exploring and enjoying themselves, but then I find somebody interesting and I want to be able to capture them in the best light. So I often look for clear skies, somewhere where the face, which is my main point, is not obstructed. but there's obstructions everywhere in this photo. We've got this little line right here. The flag itself tends to have like a little stain right here. I don't know if that's really that visible. I don't like it. And so we want to make it better. So things like this are important to me. This person I may remove or blur. So a little hint on the features that are happening today. So let's dive into it from the point of view of our screen. All right, so here we are, and I'm gonna show you a few of the features that we've got going on here. And if you're on the chat, make sure to say hello. Let me know where you're joining from. What time is it where you are? It is the evening for me here in Austin, Texas. Okay, so I'm gonna point you over to this little eraser, right? The eraser is the remove tool. And in the past, we had the remove tool, the heal and clone tool, not powered by AI. So this is our little hint right here. This is the new section. When you click that on, voila, now that this tool is powered by AI, just like that. So if you're having these questions, asking yourself, should I do any editing with AI? This is probably the space to try it out if you're just hesitating, but you want to learn something. Because this is just removing parts of an image that are not helping your image, okay? And this is just powering a tool that you already have in your tool set. So I'm gonna go in here and I'm gonna make this just slightly bigger, right about there. And I'm gonna start by removing this strange little stain right here. So I'm not going to do anything else. At this point, it immediately knows that I want to change this. So as soon as I remove my pen, it's going to begin to connect to the cloud and generate fill using AI. So this is using cloud, which means you have to be connected to the internet. Now, as you can see in that little side, it's not doing exactly the best that I was hoping for, but I can continue trying to do maybe this. It's a little trickier on the iPad because as soon as you let go, it starts to generative fill. Okay. So you can see on that version, it did perfect, right? So let's look at what happens if you don't have generative AI selected. We're going to click on it. And you know what? It does a fairly good job here on the iPad. Let's see what happens here. So as you can tell in this section here, it starts to warp some of the pixels, right? It's not really reading the context. The flag is a little bit destroyed. So your edit really needs to be refined in order to work. Now, if we undo that and use the generative AI in this tool and we select, oops, I clicked and let go. So be aware of that on the iPad. That's how it works. Let's undo that and make a full selection. In this case, I don't have a refine mask. It's just entirely the background and some context by including the flag. You saw what happened there. The flag is intact. It looks wonderful. It doesn't look deconstructed in the way that the previous did. So that's going to be important whenever you're removing or having your workflow of removing distracting elements in your scene. For example, this is just a shadow, right? So in the question of whether you can use AI in your photography, I want you to ask yourself, where is the AI that I'm using? Okay? Because these tools are already part of your workflow. They're just being boosted with this technology. So for example, if I dive in here and go into this tent here that is not doing anything for me except removing attention from my subject matter. Remember, don't let go until you're ready. So you can see how that changes the scenario without it looking too strange, right? Like too muddy. So that is replacing an obstruction and replacing it with pixels that are similar to the context of the image. So in here under refine, you're going to find that we're able to select several options. So take a look at that. We have 1, 2, 3. So at this point, it starts to get very inventive. We want something neutral, especially when it comes to modifying an environment. We don't want to add elements that aren't there if it's something along the lines of portraiture or street photography. As you can see, when I moved that mask, it started generating all over again. So that's interesting because if I want to define it, redefine it, I can easily move it again. So I like that option. I think out of all three, that was my favorite one. I'm gonna hit done. And let's do that for a second just to see what happens if I increase the size here and I just make a quick circle. Okay, that's a circle. It's generating using AI. It's probably going to be confused because it's saying, well, do you want me to remove this or what do you want me to do here? So let's use refine. And when I move this around, you can see I can move the mask again. So if I choose to move it in a different area, it's going to generate yet again without me having to create it over. Right? And we've got a couple options in there to choose from, but that's not exactly what I'm trying to remove. It's just an example of how you can keep the same shape of the mask and move it around to refine the selection. Okay, so now we can see each other. Here I am on the other side of my studio space here, and the iPad is super fun. You just have to keep in mind those elements. Okay, so as I continue here, I'm gonna dive into the desktop version in just a minute. I just want to try to see how far I can get on the iPad to do a cross-platform workflow. I wouldn't say cross-platform. This would be iPad to desktop, so it's more of my programs, my computers, whatever. So the whole point is you should have that availability to, hey, if I want to take this to a coffee shop, I can take my iPad and continue editing my photos, because that's the precious part of Lightroom. Lightroom versus Lightroom Classic, the one thing that differentiates them the most is that Lightroom is cloud-based. And the benefit of that is that I have access to my photos from wherever I am. So how can I use that benefit to my advantage whenever I'm in a hurry, whenever I want to get lost in a workflow? I want to use it by having Lightroom in several devices. So this is a cross-device workflow. That's what this is. Okay, so that's how I feel like, okay, these tools are working for me. Not the other way around. Hey, what's up, Alejandro? Nice to see you here. It says, hi, Sam, nice to hear you here at work. All right, nice. I always love tuning into a live stream while I'm working. There's something about it, makes it feel like we are coexisting in our workspaces, even if we're from far away, right? All right, so as I move on here from this workflow on the iPad, I just want to show you one last thing here. So as you can see here at the top, it says early access. And what that means, right? We've got this little section here. What that means is that we can provide feedback, and that feedback is going to go back to the folks who create and modify all of these tools for us. And they listen. I've met a lot of them. They're wonderful people. So make sure to leave that feedback. If you don't like a tool, this is an early access version, which means it's still in the works. It could be a little bit buggy. That's totally reasonable. Especially on the iPad, it can be a little bit different. So if you feel like something is cumbersome, or if you feel like something is great, leave that feedback for the engineers, because we do get all the wishes that we want. We do get everything that we want. In fact, a lot of the feedback I've provided in the past has come to be in these programs. That's a really powerful thing, right? So make sure to not take that for granted and leave some of your comments there if you like it, or if you find that it's not working for you, okay? So I'm gonna hit done there, and that should update over into my desktop. So I'm gonna dive into my desktop now and change our workspace. All right, so we're here on my desktop now, and this is pretty awesome because it's still from that same photo shoot of last year that I'm now revisiting because we have new technology available, and we're gonna explore some of this technology here. Okay, so let's see here as I explore this one. I think I'm gonna go back to my original one here. All right, so we see that there's two available in here. Whenever you're wondering where are your files, make sure to check if they are packed within each other, because that is how they're stored whenever they're edited. And I always forget where the X is because it's all the way back here. I wish it was over here. Feedback, you know what I mean? Okay, so let's start editing some of these photos. I absolutely love this photo. I think it's so beautiful. Every single time I get the opportunity, oh, I'm so little here. Okay, every single time I get the opportunity to photograph someone and they allow me to photograph them, I just love that interaction, and it's forever embedded in my mind. And so I want to do them justice. And it's really, really hard to do it in this image because, as you can tell, there are so many things calling my attention, more so than the person right in the middle, right? So sometimes it adds value to the image, and sometimes it's just distracting. So it's up to you to kind of take account to which one it is for you. So when it comes to removing items, that's how I approach it. Is this adding to my story, or is this simply distracting from my story? And elements that for me are distracting are things that are calling more attention via color, via action, right? So facial expressions, because we tend to look at faces first. That's really important. Or just via the mere complexity of it. If you squint, that's why I squinted just now. If you squint and you look at an image, you can tell the weight of the image based on how much is still visible even when you're squinting. And at this moment, the background is just calling too much attention for me, and I definitely want to change that. So let's dive in here and use this new tool to modify that background as best as possible and make this image from a C to an A+. Okay, so in the same place, we're gonna find the remove tool. We're gonna find the generative AI to toggle on, early access, okay? So this is my desktop. This is no longer the iPad. So that's gonna be important for us to know where all the tools are. Still in the same place. Thankfully, this one doesn't shift too much in the UI of the iPad versus the UI of the desktop version, okay? So here we are, we've selected generative AI. Let's not select it for a second. Let's see what happens when we don't select it. So let's say I want to remove maybe this person right here. Why this person? Well, they're wearing black. That's even stronger in the color hue. It's a lot of black. And they're cut off already. So I think we can forego them. Look at what happens. Look at this. That's so strange, right? Not what we wanted to. So why would I use this remove tool? So in the past, what I often did is I jumped over to Photoshop. And thankfully in here I've shown you that workflow before. You can right click and hit edit in Photoshop, and that should open up my Photoshop app. At the moment, I have it set to Photoshop beta. And in here, we know that Photoshop was the first to launch the generative fill AI driven tools. And so I would, of course, love to dive in here and then make that change by doing a quick selection. Even so quick, I don't even have to make it perfect. Boom. Use generative fill, write nothing in it, and get 3 options, not just one. I get 3 options each time. And this is going to be vital for you to know, just because it's always good to understand that the Adobe ecosystem talks to each other. So this is usually the workflow that I often do. I come from Lightroom over to Photoshop and remove unwanted items. Do you see that? That looks awesome. So in this case, I can hit save. But before we do that, I'm going to have to merge these and then hit save. I know. I don't know. Did you get that alert in your head? I had to merge that, which makes this workflow destructive. And we don't want that, because what if we want to bring back that person for whatever reason? Maybe they bring context. I can't undo it anymore because I'm going to save and I'm going to close. But this is the workflow that I am used to, right? It is improved from just hitting remove and getting that weird result we got earlier. It is an improvement. However, with this new feature, which is remove tool powered by generative AI, we can do it natively in Adobe Lightroom. And that's the biggest difference. Most of all, it doesn't have to be destructive. So let's use another example here. Using generative fill this time, right? So we don't get weird results. Let's start removing things. How much do we want to remove is the question. Big selections are risky because it's a very complex ask of generative fill. But I'm going to do it. Am I going to do it? I'm going to do it. Let's see what happens. As you notice in this one, I didn't get a generative fill immediately. As soon as I let go of that selection, it didn't start generative fill in the same way that the iPad version does, okay? In here, I can in fact subtract from my selection, refine my selection before I'm ready to generate a new scene. Now I can hit apply. Read the tips always. For best results, brush over the entire object and any shadow. And we get a new environment altogether. I told you this was going to be tricky. Now in here, we get 3 options. Again, 1, that was the first one, 2, and 3. Now you can tell 2 is probably the best of all of them. Now this is changing my landscape quite a bit. It's really up to you to see whether this is an option for you. What is the purpose of your photo? If your photo is trying to be focused entirely on your subject and not the landscape, like you're not trying to showcase a neighborhood particularly, this might work, right? Portraits can be enhanced in this way. So now let's do something else here. It could be in your interest to keep these people and create context for the event if that was the reason for your photography. So I'm going to remove even more, and I forget that I can continue to let go and continue to add. This is not like the iPad where you let go and it immediately gives you a generative fill. Okay, so this so far, I can press apply. And in this one, it says size your eraser to be slightly larger than the object you want to remove. So when you get weird results like this is the part where I said about the feedback. This is when you want to provide feedback. Did you get the result that you were expecting? No, I didn't. In fact, we got really warped results because this is an early access tool. Yes, it's a new feature. Yes, we have access to it, but it's early access, which means there's room for improvement. So I can say something like warped results. Submit. That's simple, right? Not that hard at all. Now, let's see if it did any better in the alternative versions, variations right here. Toggle to the right. I think this one is working for me. I'm gonna go with, oof, there was a little bit of a cut right there, but I'm gonna go with that one for now. So the reason why I'm going to go with this, regardless of the fact that these artifacts here may be very telling that this is generated, is because of our next tool that we're gonna be featuring today. So let's jump over. This is good for now. Let's jump over to our new feature right here, right at the bottom. So if you use Adobe Lightroom already, you might be familiar with the lens blur. And the lens blur was in early access recently. Now it's for general availability, which means they've removed any weird things that were happening. For example, whenever you use the blur tool, it wouldn't cover the entire scene. There would be holes, and that wasn't quite it, but now it's improved. So let's give it a try. So under the lens blur, we're gonna find apply. And let me know in the chat if you've tried these tools already. They've been out for a whole day, not that long at all, right? And if you've tried lens blur, because that has been out for a little bit, but more so as an early access. This one's better and improved. So let's give it another go here. I love already how this looks, but I can continue to customize this. The goal of lens blur is really just an opportunity to add more depth to a scene if you didn't get a chance to do it during production. Sometimes I think that when I am sort of run and gun, right, like trying to take photos of my landscapes and I find interesting people, it's really hard to have all the settings in that right moment. And it's really hard to see your screen in that right moment on my camera. So having too shallow of a depth of field can be a bad result because my focus may not be in the right place. So instead, I can have a more focused scene and come in post-production and add that really nice lens blur. So that's what I'm gonna be doing just for testing. We'll see how that turns out, okay? In here, we have a few bokehs, whatever you want to call it. And some of these, you can see in here how they transform. Let's go in here. So take a look at these little circles, right? So we can go from this one, which is the bubble, and then we can go into this one, which is the 5-blade, apparently seen in vintage lenses. And then we can have the donut, which is by far my favorite. Look how pretty. This is definitely belongs to a digital camera. Let me see if I guessed it right. Mirror lenses, reflex or mirror lenses. Okay. And then we've got this one here. And this is the cat eye. I don't know if you can see how the cat eye changes. So we add a little bit of texture in the background. We add a little bit of depth of field. So now this image goes from this to this, right? And this is important in scenarios where you want your hero image to be the subject matter. It's up to you how much you want to remove. I definitely did it on this one here. And I had a different strategy, right? So as you can see in this option, if I remove apply, I chose to keep the people in the background. I chose to keep these colors because I knew that when I blurred them, they would add context, right? So I chose to keep all of these people and just add that bokeh. So now it feels like they were somewhere, but not necessarily alone, right? So it's really up to you to gauge how you use these tools. No one can tell you how to use them truly. You're the storyteller. You're the one telling the story. So don't let anyone change that for you. This is your story to tell. Think about how you want to tell it though. Think about how the viewer is being pulled in different directions as they see your image. Potentially in the wrong direction, right? Look at this image for instance, right? We go from this. I'm going to double click here to let you see the original image. This is the original image. We had a person right here on the right hand side. We had a whole car in the background. We had so many obstructing elements. Now this is the edited image. So much better, right? Now I'm really looking at them and not at anything else. So that's working for me. Let's continue editing this photo. I think as I got closer to my final scene here, I might want to do some color correction. So let's dive into one of the newest tools here. I'm gonna try to challenge myself to do it in a different way. So let's go into point color. Point color lets you select hues, right? So I'm gonna select that particular hue with that particular tone. And I can select the range of that hue just to be that more specific. I can select the saturation of that hue and how bright or dark that hue is. So I'm correcting just that hue and not this blue. So that's the difference between point color. I get to select that color specifically on all levels, not just the hue, but also the tonality based on the lighting of that color. So let's change it up and shift these colors a little bit. Let's make this a happy sky. I love bringing down the luminance just a tad bit, but I don't want any edging on the trees. So that's before, after. It looks awesome. I think I'm definitely loving this much more. Let's see, what else can we do here? Let's warm up the scene. Let's go into their skin tone and make sure there's enough color in there. Just a tad bit. You saw that? Nothing crazy. I'm not gonna be changing the hue unless the skin had green or purples that I didn't want in my scene. Then I would be shifting the hue. This is a recommendation to keep the color as true as possible. if you're struggling with that, I recommend that you use some of the premium presets that are based on different color skins. And these were made by the community of photographers, inside our community of photographers at Adobe, so that we can help our photographers honor the skin tone of their subjects. So we have a lot of different skin tones here. And of course, they're all modifiable, so you can always change them and adjust them per your image. Okay, so that's looking good. Let's do a quick mask here. We have a subject mask. So that's AI powered also. It's selecting our subject. And if I hover over it, you can see the subject selection. And I can do some more edits in here. I want to see their eyes a little bit more. So I'm going to bring up those shadows. See those eyes? Much more visible this time. That's looking good. Okay, so let's see if we can go in here and select person. So under person, this is going to be interesting because instead of selecting the subject, we're selecting the person. Those two I often get confused, but let me show you the difference. So when you select person, you have all of these other masks available. I want to select their teeth so that we can help out, I think, the over tonality, yellow tonality of the day definitely makes the entire scene too warm. And often teeth are a victim of this. So let's improve that. So under presets, now that we have our mask, our teeth mask, under presets, I have whitened teeth. And just like that, I improved their teeth. Isn't that awesome? That's looking good. And I can say the amount. I think that's fine. I like the way that looks. Okay, so before, after. I'm loving this photo now. This is looking really great. Okay, so let's add a little bit of contrast in here back. I think I'm gonna go back into presets because I don't want to remove this visibility of their eyes. So I'm gonna go into person again. And this time I want to select their shirt. So I'm gonna go into clothes, create. If you haven't tried masks, you gotta try it, because instead of making a universal edit, an overall edit on your image, you get to be more precise. So let's see here. What do we want to change? A little bit of contrast on their shirt, something like this. Gotta love their shirt, right? Okay, I'm loving it. This is looking great. Look at this. What? Take a look at that. Let's go full frame here so you can see it. Before and after. So much better. Okay, so that was awesome and easy, right? Let's dive into some more photos here and see how we can improve them and, you know, bring back some more of these portraits, because they're kind of collecting dust in my folders, digital dust. I want to make sure that they get the applause that they deserve. You know, I'm going to publish these fairly soon, and I'm going to improve them before I do that. So in this one, I like this photo a lot, especially because they're wearing their mask. I think this was still the season where some people wanted to wear masks and some people didn't. And then it became fashion. And I think that's so intriguing because we're entering the time where like this is starting to feel like it's in the past. And as a photographer collecting photos of a time and place, I feel like it strengthens my images in a way that I can't really replicate. So I wouldn't do any retouching on them at all. I would do the retouching on the background. And that's how I'm able to differentiate my photos. So this image, gosh, I love it. I'm glad I did the right thing and put the picture that their head, which is the main part, on a clearer environment, because the rest is not very clean. It's very distracting. This person in here, although they're Austin FC fans, I'm happy about that, but it seems like they're framed on purpose, but that's not my intention, right? And their green is really calling out. It's pulling me. The framing is pulling me into that as if it's another part of the narrative, and it's not. So I want to make sure I can modify that and improve this photo by changing this background. Personally, I think there's going to be room for photos like this that eventually people are going to understand that we are introducing AI ingredients into our photos. And there will be the purists, which the word itself is a little bit elitist, in my opinion. And then there's going to be those of us who embrace tools and make them do what we want. Because we are still the creators, right? We're still the creative people that think independently of these tools. I mean, I welcome you to have that conversation with me. I love talking about this. It's such an intriguing debate. But we are in a point of transition, and we define what is going to move forward and what stays behind. So, I don't know, we have this attitude where banning things is the way to go. I don't know if that's the way to go. When was the last time that worked? I think having boundaries is a different conversation. So, as I told you earlier, making grand selections can be very risky, right? So, in this case, you can see all of the artifacts are still they're definitely not as good as Adobe Firefly 3 in Photoshop, in my opinion. So far, of course, this tool's early release. So what can we do to help this scenario? I might want to make small selections at a time. Now this is generating each time, so I believe it's using your Gen AI credits. I don't often think of them because I think it's fine, because once your Gen AI credits are over, it still works. It just works slower, at a slower pace. It says here you can refine the result afterwards. All right, how can you do that? I'm not entirely sure how you do that. So I think this ended up being a worse result. So let's go back to what we did earlier, I would say. Let's see if we're able to go back like this. Yeah, we were able to undo, and I still have my selection here. And let's hit generate and refresh. So we get a couple more generations. You can skip automatically entering refinement by holding Command. Whoa, I think that was a really cool tip. I missed it. I didn't read fast enough. Okay. By holding Command. Oh. Oh. Gotcha. Okay. So let's see here if we have any that we like. In this workflow, I often find myself knowing that it doesn't really matter to me if the results aren't exactly it. What I want is to reduce the visuals, the weight of the visuals in the background. So if this kind of looks like we're somewhere, that's fine by me because I'm going to use lens. So let's see here. This one definitely had a harder time removing elements. So let's give this a try in one go. Let's see how it works out. I miss my stylus. This is when I want to jump into the iPad because using my mouse is weird. Press apply. Okay, let's see how that looks. Ooh, this took me to another world. Okay, let me show you here how that looked because you might not be able to see it. What is this? This is an entirely new environment. So that's kind of cool because I can reinvent this photo and place them anywhere I want. I don't know if I want to do that though. Okay, let's hit refresh and generate again. To remove smaller spots, try turning off generative AI. Can you imagine making this whole thing a sky? Oh, that's what I want. Look at this. This is so much better. Okay. I'm getting somewhere here. I'm going to duplicate this scene so that I'm no longer hovering over the generative AI maskings that I've done. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm compressing this file, but instead I'm duplicating it. So let's see here. Duplicate one photo. Be aware that at this point, when you duplicate, I can no longer go before and after in the same way. We are now working with a new image. It looks like I'm wrong about that. You can still see that image. Okay. Let's see here if I can make this entire thing a sky. Now, unfortunately, these are good testing grounds, but unfortunately, I want more control. And unfortunately, I can't have more control here. So this is feedback I might give back to the engineers at Adobe. I want to be able to say I want sky in the way that I can do that in Photoshop. Did I say that correctly? Yes. So if this doesn't work in my favor, I'm going to jump into a duo mode in Photoshop. So hit apply. It might be able to read what I want to do and understand what I'm trying to do. I think it did it. Look at that. Oh my gosh. I am honestly so happy right now because this photo, I've loved this photo since I took it, and it was just so problematic for me that it had this complex background. If you know my photography, you know that most times I approach it with a very minimalistic eye, even if it's street photography, because that's the point. I'm curating these spaces. And I'm leaving room this time to modify these spaces and just honor my subject above all. That's the boundary I'm allowing. Do you see what I mean? I don't know. As an artist, you have to have those questions. You have to navigate the changes. And if it's not for you, it's not for you. But you're watching it, you probably see the difference. It's kind of awesome. Okay, so my boundary is I don't want to modify them. In fact, gosh, this is a conversation I want to have. Editing tools have been happening since forever, right? The amount of times that folks have told me, make sure to Photoshop me. They use it as a verb. And I say to myself, I'm going to do my best to take a good photo of you right here, right now. And the rest is just enhancing. And that's what I want to do in this image. I want to enhance. I don't want to deceive. I don't want to lie. Those are the things that I think throw us off from post-editing. That and the fact that this is technology, so it scares a lot of people. But what if you have your rule book of ethics? What if you know what works for you and what you're trying to say? Because whether you want to or not, you're saying something. A lot of photographers take photos and they have no idea what they said. They just know it looks pretty. I mean, it's pretty awesome to dissect your own photos and have a guidance of how you are navigating your artistry and not just allowing the loud voices to say how you should do your craft. That doesn't make sense, right? It definitely has to come from you. Otherwise, what's left? So I know we live in a time where everybody replicates everything, but let's dive in here. Let's dive in here and ask ourselves what's possible. So, okay, as we continue here, that was my 2 cents. So let's see here. I'm going to remove this because I don't like that. Let's continue to make this as clean as ever. Oh my God, I'm going to post this on Behance. I can't wait. This is going to be exciting. I've been leaving this collecting digital dust for too long. Nice, clean cut. Now, this landscape here doesn't match this landscape here, and that's bugging me. So, in fact, I just want it to be all sky. Can we do that? So, engineers, definitely, I need more control. I need more control here because as I can see, I need to flatten this image in order to not be hovering over previous selections. Remove selections. Show overlay on hover. Let's not show overlay on hover. Maybe that helps us. There you go. Okay, we're working with it. Let's remove this, and hopefully it understands I want more sky. My person here is flying. They're above the earth. They're in the sky, you know. Why not? I love being able to photograph people and just showcase them in the best way possible. So I guess we can do that one, and let's see what happens on the other one. Size your eraser to be slightly larger. Yeah, we do that every time. Slightly larger means you're adding even more context. Let's see here what was happening. There you go. I can only do one at a time. For everybody that's on the stream, don't be shy. Say hello. Oh my God, I'm getting there. Now let's see what variations we have. There you go. Clear, clean skies. Oh, I love it. I love it, love it. Okay. Now let's look at the before. Wow. I mean, take a look at this. This is gnarly. Before, after. So much better. I love it. This is looking so good. All right. So finally, we're gonna get to do some bokeh, right? So I like the sky. You know what? I could keep the sky as is, but I feel like it can definitely benefit from a little bit of blur because I can keep generating here. I do think this continues to use your credits. You can skip automatically entering refinement. Yeah, I do think it does that. By the way, you can click this overlay color and change the overlay hue in case you need more visibility. So something like this could be helpful. If you're working with blue, of course, putting it in blue would render it invisible. So be aware of that. There we go. Leave it at red for now. But I know sometimes I'm editing a photo that is entirely red because I have a red background, and having an overlay in red is not helpful. Okay, this looks so beautiful. Okay, let's see if we need some blur or we keep it as is. Lens blur. Now, in the order of operations, I would mostly do color next. And so removing and adding elements, color correction, then I would do blur. So should we follow our order of operations? Yes, let's do that. So, hello, point color. I'm challenging myself to use point color each time, just to see how far I can get. I want to reduce that luminance. Shift that hue and make it happy as ever. It's a happy sky, folks. Reduce the saturation a little bit so it still looks nice and natural. Something about a desaturated teal is so nice. Okay, so that looks good to me. Let's see if we can select their shirt here without ending up selecting this hue right here on their skin. So that's going to be peculiar because oftentimes when I select the color with the color mixer on the target adjustment tool, for example, it might modify several things. You see that? It's selecting what's here and there. So the point color should help us out in refining that color. So the color is right here. Let's visualize that range. It says that there's a little bit on his skin, but it's not all of his skin, which is good. There's a little bit on pride as well. So let's make that even smaller to refine that color. And we can see that it's now less on their skin and more on their shirt. A little bit still here, but that makes sense. That color is obviously there. And a little bit on their cheeks. Okay, so let's continue to modify this. Now it's not so heavy on the cheeks anymore. How much further can we take this? Not as much on the pride, very much on the shirt. Okay, that's working for me. Now I can change that hue to anything I want. I can saturate it even more. I can shift the hue into a different tint, tone being more black, tint being more white, right? We can make it orange. Oh my God, we just made this entirely orange. Or we can make it stronger. So it does hit a little bit here on their cheeks, like I said earlier. So be careful of modifying the skin tone. Okay, so let's modify this a little bit more, and I think I'm gonna call it because this is absolutely beautiful and I already love it. That's looking good. Let's shift the luminance a little bit. No, maybe not. more saturation there? No, but I really liked when it was a little bit more desaturated. Okay, that's looking good. Before, after, make my portrait stand out even more so. Huh. I noticed there's a little bit here still from the concrete, so be aware of that. We're gonna have to be very aware of these little nudges right here. Wait, is that their shirt? Their purse? I think it was their purse. Okay, never mind. Wait. I can't figure it out. What is that? I don't know what that is. Okay, I'm gonna remove it because, gosh, this is the part where I don't like getting too close to changing them in any way. So I'm gonna get really in here and make sure that their curve is not being affected. So it's not gonna change that, because I want to change the background, but my boundary is I don't want to change my subject if I can help it. It wouldn't be a portrait anymore. I feel like it would be modified in a way that I don't want. Okay, subtract. I believe you can hold Alt, but because I have a cursor here to zoom in, it's working for that instead. But you should be able to hold Alt and toggle between minus and plus, so adding and removing. Okay, hit apply. Okay, gives us some alternative options there. And I think their skin wasn't shifted. Well, it didn't give me a sky, so that was a no-go. You know what? I'm going to leave as this because I think I'm fixating. And that's just their purse. Is it just their purse? Okay. This is how it goes. This is literally how it goes. Okay, I still love this photo. It's looking great. And I think I'm done. Am I done? That's another thing you have to call out. When is a photo complete? Let's add a little blur. It's not done. Let's see here. Let's add blur because it's a new feature and we want to try it. And it's improved on top of that. It's not an early release. This is improved. It's estimating the depth between the background, the midground, the foreground. Okay, that's looking good. Let's reduce the amount just a little bit. And this is something that I want to call out. The counter of that R is also being blurred, and I didn't want that. So under here, under refinement, we're going to find a brush tool, which allows us to bring back the focus in areas that we didn't intend to remove focus. Okay. And now we can visualize that depth by clicking this on. And anything that's warm is in focus. Anything that's purple or cooler is not in focus. So I do want this to be in focus. So let's brush it and bring it back. You can see there's some warmer, cooler areas here. I want all of this in focus. Okay, my subject's in focus. That's exactly what I wanted. Okay, visualize depth, off. And I'm just gonna do a little bit less and do my favorite, the donut. And that looks beautiful. I absolutely love it. This is looking awesome. So one final before and after. And here. And let's see the other one we edited. And let's do a before and after. Wow. I mean, wowza, indeed. And let's do one more here. I think we had one more. And I think in this one, we can also add this color hue by copying and pasting. So editing with the point color might not work there. Let's do a quick one. Shifting that hue. Okay, perfect. That's all I wanted. And this is the before and after. Awesome. So thank you, folks. Thank you for joining me today. This has been a fun stream. Remember, these streams happen every Wednesday. My new schedule is 6:30 Central Time. Okay? But keep up with me on my website. That is where you're going to see the most recent schedule. Last Wednesday was my birthday. So, you know, had a chill time. Had a lot of fun. Had a lot of food. So I hope to see you on the next stream. Make sure to subscribe to my channel and keep up with all the live streams. There are some really cool ones coming up around the iPad Pro and editing with the new generative AIs. So thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you on the next one. Bye. What's not to like about this bridge is cool. This bridge is cool. Good job, baby. Just go to sleep, Tony. I know you've been sleeping all day. You've been laying down at least. Good job, Bobby. What's not to like about this bridge is cool.